This is pertaining to my recent video of being sold by teammates in ESG Football. Let me give you guys a little bit of a history rundown. So for those that don't know, in my description of my videos, I give you guys archive footage of all the videos that I have made in the past. And this gives you a rough idea from a competitive standpoint of how I was in college football and Madden over the years. Now, today's video, I'm going to go over the tolerable difference, pros and cons between the two after experiencing, ESG football, even though ESG football is not a fully polished game, but you can simply tell a big difference between the two games. So let me break it down for you guys. So with all the archive footage that you guys can see here, and when you look at the description of today's video, you guys can look back and click on these videos and see the outcomes. So from playing the #1 player in the world over the years on Madden, doing the same exploit and glitch, which is the freeze invisible team glitch. Then you got the times where I'm playing the #2 player on College Football 25, or the top players in general on both games and Madden over the years. And there's other things where I had like tremendous comebacks and all that good stuff, right? So the biggest thing between both games from EA Sports games and ESG Football, well, let's hash this out. First off, ESG Football in beta form is a continued developed game that's not even fully polished. So we got to take that into consideration when dealing with issues and things of that sort. But with EA Sports, you have legacy issues with issues that's still occurring in today's game from like Madden 13, Madden 14, Madden 15, whatever the case is, right? That's legacy issues. The fact that there's a polished football game of EA Sports and that's continuing on with current Madden and College Football, that shouldn't be happening. But anyways, besides the point, you take a look at this. We're taking a look at from that archive list of the description videos that I posted. At the very bottom, this is the last thing that showcase where it's one of the greatest comebacks that nobody has ever pulled off, and I highly doubt any of you guys have ever done this in College Football 25 at all. This is where the tolerable difference is going to be showcased. So you take a look here. I'm facing the guy that was in top 100 at the time, and I'm going up the leaderboards. I just reached the top 1,000, but you guys see the total games played difference. I haven't even played that much games. I wasn't really grinding this game as much as I did when it comes to competing online in the past with Madden. But besides the point, you guys see that I still have a little bit more championships won over him compared to the total amount of games that he has played. Now, half of my games, once again, I preached this in the past, I lost because I'm, testing out lower tier teams, facing just Alabama top tier 1 teams the whole time. But the whole thing with that is that I was losing because people was doing the DC glitch at the time. For those that don't know, it's disconnection booting people. But besides the point, you guys see the game difference, you guys see the record. But this game was in the playoff championship game, right? So, like I said, this is the final game of the season. I have to win it in order to win a championship. My opponent was Georgia. I'm using the team that I've been using the whole time, Kentucky. He's up 28-7 over me right before the first half finishes. Now, the thing that I can tolerate, of course, both games has issues, but once again, ESG football is in beta, and that's expected to happen compared to college and Madden. But in EA Sports games, I can deal with the issues that their game has. The thing that I can tolerate within their game after, years of experience dealing with people that glitch and exploit the game, broken gameplay mechanics, I'm fine with because it's just being used to. But the difference between the two is that, of course, you have the similarity of the myself mistakes. Anything between you and what you do, you're going to make mistakes regardless, right? In both games. But the biggest difference between both games is that in college football, it comes down to what happens within the gameplay mechanics. ESG football, it comes down to what happens based off user mistakes for the most part instead of broken gameplay. Now, stick with me now. Continuing on in this video, my opponent continues to score. I'll show you guys the whole progress of me playing terrible at the beginning of the game. And I preach this all the time. For some odd reason, I always start off bad. It's user mistakes that happens for me, or of course BS happens, but for the most part, it's user mistakes that make me get into these type of positions and I just start off bad. So I show the continuation of my opponent still scoring. This is happening right before the third quarter finishes. It's 35-14. Okay. The game quarters is what? 3-minute quarters each, which you guys see here at the beginning of the game is literally 3-minute quarters. My opponent can just chew clock and end the game, right? Which literally he tried, but from user mistake, overcoming the mistakes that happened that I done in the game, I was able to get myself back into the game and have the craziest comeback in history. And to have it done at this stage in the game during the season against Georgia, which is a tier 1 team with all the overpowering ability players, with a tier 3 team, Kentucky, well, that goes to show it's kind of based off my mistakes, but it's overcoming also with all the legacy issues, glitches, exploits, abilities, whatever the case may be for EA Sports games. This is why I get so frustrated with ESG football, especially when it comes to the competitiveness, right? So this I can deal with. Like I said, I can deal with the issues, the glitches, exploits that EA Sports has to offer because I'm used to it. I know how to overcome it. And for the most part, if anything bad happens, I take it upon myself because that's years of experience, my mistakes. So here I go jumping back on college football 25 after playing ESG football with the frustration that happened during the tournament. 12-0 of the season, playing in my championship game. I sort by the win streak. I'm 51 on my main account with the highest win streak at the time. And of course, I'll show you guys on my burner account where I went 80-0, right? So because this account, my main account, like I said early on, you know, I was losing based off the disconnection and some other BS that was happening. And also I was using a variety of teams before I started to use Kentucky over and over and things of that sort. But take a look at this game. This is stuff that happens like the ability, quarterbacks breaking sacks, and then people throwing blind reads. So like I said, this is something I can deal with. The issues. We all know this when it comes to the college football 25 experience and Madden over the years experience. But when it comes to ESG football, I have to depend on other people to play their part, play their role. And that's why I say team communication is the biggest thing. So, like in college football, I can adapt, I can tell my players to play. And that comes down to the game itself with the gameplay mechanics for them to play properly. There's times where I told you guys and preached this and showcase breakdown videos of where I'll have a hard flat. My guy does not play a hard flat. Or I have a deep blue. My guy doesn't play a deep blue zone assignment. Same thing goes for ESG football. If I'm picking certain plays, I'm expecting you to play this assignment. Or, if I'm playing at quarterback and I reroute you to, you know, run another route. So for instance, if I'm telling you to run a slant, I'm anticipating you to run a slant because I'm going to throw a quick slant pass. And the fact that, I can't trust people to do that on ESG football, that's the most frustrating thing of all time. So that's the biggest difference between the two because people on ESG football, every position is controlled by a user. And sometimes people don't like to listen. They like to do what they want to do. And that's why I blowed up on my last video because, having tournament sessions over and over for like the past 4 times, and I can't get over that hump, especially when it comes playoff time and people sell. It's frustrating, especially when you tell somebody to do something and they don't do it. And that's the biggest difference between the two. That, you know, in ESG football, I simply can't tolerate that. And it gets to the point like, bro, come on now. So you guys seen the highlights from this match, I just hopped on it, played my championship game, went undefeated, and won another championship. But it's the fact that, I'm able to, have everything done my way to a point because it's all, just focus on you doing the adjustments. But when you have to deal with like 7 versus 7 type of deal, especially when I'm waiting for the 11 versus 11, seeing how that's going to happen in ESG football, but when you have to deal with other people and trying to control them from a football IQ mindset, you think most of them will have that, or like a common sense knowledge. For like instance, if you have like man assignment, I have played with players where like they automatically don't have to tell each other that they're going to switch mid play to cover the crossing routes. They would just automatically do it. Like, I'm fine with that because I know those people have that football IQ mindset to automatically do that without saying anything. But then you have people that just don't have any knowledge, any IQ, and that's the most frustrating thing with the people that's currently in ESG football now. Granted, I understand for people that's new trying to learn the game, it's completely different between what we have been used to with Madden and College Football over the years. Mechanics, a little bit different. There's some buttons that's kind of the same, but the whole concept of how to play the game is completely different between the two, companies. But that's another thing. You're helping these new players understand how to play the game, but you're also telling them during like the pre-snap or when you're selecting play, especially at quarterback, how to do something before the play starts. You're giving them tips while they're playing so they can also learn on the fly and understand. But when they don't follow through, it's very frustrating when you're literally giving them a tutorial breakdown during the play. But once again, I have to push that aside because they are new players. They have to understand the feeling and then also understand at the same time what you're communicating to them. So I put that to the side just a tad bit. But there's certain people that have been playing the game for a while, and it's like sometimes they don't want to listen to you. They think you're wrong and they just want to do their own thing. And that's when it comes down to the frustrating things that happen. There's times where you tell somebody shift left or move to the left and they're moving right. It's like, are they doing that on purpose or do they literally not know their left and right? And that is something that kills me every single time. And it's numerous people that I tell that to. You also have a color icon over your player in the game. You would tell a certain color icon player to do something. And it's like they don't acknowledge their color icon and they don't listen. It's like, bro, what is going on? Some of the OGs in ESG football, most of you guys understand this because I know for a fact some of you guys have the same problems with certain players. Of course, like I say, you have to push to the side for the new players that we're trying to teach and learn. But it's like some of the other OGs that has like 2 or 3 weeks in and they still have these type of issues. Like you shouldn't have these type of, you know, non-IQ issues when it comes to playing. But once again, people may not be like football smart or they never play football. I understand that, but it's the fact that you tell people, you break it down to them what they need to do and they don't do it. So here's another big example that happened in the tournament. There was times where it's 3rd and 35 or 4th and 30. It feels like I'm playing Madden where somebody chucks it up and BS happens, right? Like they get a ridiculous animation, catch it over like 4 people. The thing is, in ESG football, it's simulation based, but here's the problem. We would tell the DBs to simply swat the ball. Reason why? From a football standpoint, it's like catching a punt. If they go for interception when it's 4th and longer, so they throw it deep like a Hail Mary, they catch it, you have to work with longer field position. If they just swat the ball, you have a greater chance to be closer to wherever they end up being at on the field. For instance, if they're on the 10-yard line and or 25-yard line, they need to throw it deep for first down. Well, you have great field position to work with to get easy points, but people do not think that way. They don't look at it like that. They just want to get a stat, like an individual stat. It makes no point. But we would tell people, the DBs especially, to just swat the ball. And what do people do? They do not go for a goddamn swat. They want to get that individual stat for some odd reason. And of course, during the tournament, what happened? The offense ends up converting the 4th and forever, which should be an easy stop just because the DBs don't want to listen and don't want to swat, and they give up a first down conversion. Like, bruh, like really? That's where it's like you can't depend on people. Even though you tell them, and multiple people will say this, communication as a teammate And yet that one individual person would not do it. And that's why I feel like I was being sold half the time or for the most part. And it's like at this point with all these tournament outcomes, how it's been happening, that's what's been the most frustrating thing that I cannot tolerate. Also want to do a little bit of recap for the championship game that went down, which I wasn't able to do in my last video, but Ferrego's team, for those that don't know, Ferrego is the best running back in the game by far, but his team was able to be the same team from the previous tournament. So the people that's on that team, highly talented as a group collectively. They end up facing the Devs in the championship, and of course, Ferrego's team lost. But looking at it, it came down to a team effort standpoint. So, for instance, a lot of people complain like, oh, they can't stop Fuego because, he glitches through the blocking animations. And I preach this. Once again, there's no collisions when the ball carrier goes through like a block or an engaged block, and they can just run through that animation and break free, right? But when looking at it, a lot of people simply just cannot break down and tackle. Half the time, people just hold turbo when pursuing Fuego because he's so fast. They trying to get to a point to make a tackle on him, but they're holding turbo for the most part instead of straight tackling and breaking down, and he just ends up running right by them. The thing is, in the championship game, of course, he was still able to have those moments, but for the most part, the devs broke down and made the tackles. Now, not only did that happen, the other team effort that makes Fuego stand out as a running back when he breaks free is literally blocking assignments. And in the championship game, there was times where he did break free, like I said, but the blocking, people was able to get the correct blocks. And there was times where they wasn't able to pick up blocks. The devs just got by the blockers and blew them up in the backfield. And that was the biggest difference maker. Then when you look at the devs, they was doing this bunch, kind of like hop step with the quarterback, and then he picks and chooses which way he wants to run the ball, scrambling, right? But he would tell the receivers who to block, and you've seen a big difference when there's people able to make assignment blocks based off the pre-snap alignment by the defense, and if they make those blocks, big plays can happen. So it was literally seeing a team effort between both teams, and it comes down to who can execute the best based off teamwork. And this is another thing a lot of people don't take into consideration when watching these games or looking at it in a detailed perspective. People just look at it from, oh, who can possibly run a glitch play? First off, there's really no glitch plays. It comes down to how the team execute certain plays, right? But another thing people look at is where individually who they think is the best, he should shine, right? So if he's the best quarterback, he should dominate quarterback and things of that sort. So that's another thing that people look at when it comes to this game. But this game is not an individual sport. The only way it can look like an individual sport is if other teammates play their roles and play their parts effectively. And it's all based off team communication. It's not like college football Madden where you can probably do one play based off, ratings. And I showed this with Kentucky. You guys see me throw a deep ball every time, no matter how the coverage looks. If I see one on one, I'm throwing it deep every single time just because the ability helps his speed factor. I showed this against Alabama players with 99 speed DBs. My receiver only has a 98 speed, but because his ability, I'm able to just throw deep every single time because the DB gets burnt no matter what. And I showed that based off broken gameplay mechanics. This game is different, but at least every rating matters for every category, and it shows in this game alone. And for those that's in the ESG beta, you guys seen that during the championship game. You guys seen where I believe it was Lamont at quarterback for the dev team. He was throwing it deep at certain times because somebody got cooked at defensive back for Fuego's team. So that comes down to what? The individual aspect of the player, possible ratings. But another thing is, what was great to hear from both teams, or from Fuego's team for the most part, is that people would take accountability. They'd be like, oh, that was my fault. I mean, he just burnt me, or I messed up on the coverage, and then they would adjust. A lot of people in ESG football do not use their mics to communicate or take accountability. That's why there's like color icons over the players so we can see who fucked up. Like literally, we're going to end up calling you out for your mistake. And there's a lot of times where I've done that, trying to figure out who's what, even though you can bring up the play art and it shows everybody's gamer tag and it shows the color icon that they are. But, at the time, it's like, I don't acknowledge that because I'm in the moment, but just trying to figure out who made a mistake so we can correct it and have that team communication. But it's like people are scared to talk and take that accountability when they do mess up. So that's another thing. It's like, bro, we're going to call you out when you make a mistake. And we're going to talk it out. We're going to try to figure out how we can adjust or help you out to not make that mistake in the future or what we need to do. For instance, if you feel like you're a slower DB and you're getting cooked, let's put somebody else rotated back there to take your assignment. That's all it is. That's why team communication is a thing. But yet, a lot of people just simply don't do that. And especially when you tell them to do something, they don't listen. It makes it that much harder. So hopefully, especially the new players, was able to look at that championship game and get a better insight on how things are done and why team communication is a huge deal in this game. And it gives a better insight of how, you know, games can be played out, and it dictates the outcome of the matches. Like if you don't have that communication or if somebody sells, you're most likely going to lose the game. So anyways, I hope this video gave you guys a little bit better insight of why I was frustrated, why it built up over the time, and the tolerable difference between the two games and what ESG football is going to be bringing to the table and why you cannot play this game like it's Madden and College Football. It's completely different. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. If you guys want to join and participate the closed beta for ESG Football, check out the link down below in the description. Join the waiting room Discord, come through, apply, and follow the instructions there. And I'll see you guys on the field. Till next time, see you guys in the next one. I'm out. Peace.